in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Harvard Law School graduate. Yeah, I joined Columbia Records in 1960 as a contract lawyer. I couldn't introduce my godfather no better way. Godfather, Mr. Clive Davis. How are you, Godfather?
Oh, Clef, I'm great. I'm great because I'm here with you. And I'm looking forward to our talking today.
Well, first of all, I'm real excited because, you know, coming up in the industry and growing up in Haiti, right? And then coming to America, my father was a minister and, you know, circular music in the church. So basically we used to have to sneak to go to the clubs and play music because, you know, they would call it devil music. This is the devil's music. And he always said you couldn't serve two masters because the music industry is so evil. And all I gotta do is tell you, when I got with you, Clive, it just normalized everything for me because I actually found somebody that actually care about the artist. So I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to you.
That was very special. Thank you. Thank you for that.
And last time we talked, of course, was on Pride Month, I had an incredible time. Out of nowhere, Carlos Santana jumps on this Zoom and starts going crazy, which I loved. That was definitely quite amazing. I wanted off to start by asking you a question. Growing up in Brooklyn, because, man, I'm telling you, when I came to Brooklyn, it was nuts. What was that? Because they always say when people come from Brooklyn, there's a whole tenacity about them. What was life like in Brooklyn? Can you break that down for me, Godfather?
You know, growing up in Brooklyn has been, in many ways, very important for my life. Number one, it was a melting pot, so that although my neighborhood was predominantly Jewish, there were enough immigrants, if you will, from Ireland, from Italy. There was enough from the Caribbean, so that I really felt that I was not outside of where life was centering. It was very much a melting pot of religions, races, colors. So that socially served me well. I was a student from the beginning of my school. Loved reading, loved academics, but the best advice I ever got was from my mother. Because my mother said, you know, school, learning, education, rise above. My father was an electrician, and neither he nor my mother nor anybody in their family had gone to college. But where I grew up, to rise above the station of your parents, they were all working class there. You either became a doctor or a lawyer, and school was very important. But my mother said to me, you know, don't go in any kind of ivory tower. It's great, and you're an A student, it's great. But you gotta learn people. You gotta mix with people. You gotta get out there, and that's how you get common sense. That's how you get relationships with people. You don't want to be in an ivory tower. So, Clef, I was out there playing stickball, playing touch football.
Wow.
Meeting all my peers, being grounded in sports, athletics, lived 6 blocks from Ebbets Field. Mm-hmm. I became a rabid Brooklyn Dodger fan. In those days, the season was 154 games. Mm-hmm. I was allowed to see 22 maximum in the bleachers, 50 cents. And the other thing that's very key is that the public school 161 in Crown Heights that I went to, followed by Erasmus Hall High School, so grounded me in what they called the minimum essentials of math, grammar, spelling, that it served me that way in such a special way all of my life. And I'm so indebted to Brooklyn, so indebted for every aspect, so that although I was to go to NYU and to go to Harvard Law, my parents died when I was a freshman in college, unrelated to each other. So in effect, I was orphaned when I was 18. And I lived by scholarship. So the grades, the study of academics, the love of reading paid off. But when I got the offer, and I'm going fast forward, I'll go back and forth as you see fit.
No problem. You know I love hearing you talk.
But when I, just to bring this in a practical way, when I was at this law firm for 3 years, I got an offer unsolicited from the chief attorney for Columbia Records, a client of the firm. And he said, if you leave now, within a year, I'm going to become head of international for Columbia. We're going to set up companies in England and France. And I don't have a backup here sufficient, but within a year, you'll be head attorney. So I went to the senior attorney of this law firm I was in, a great law firm. Sam Roseman was the lawyer for Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman. Ralph Colin represented CBS, Columbia Records, Bill Paley. So I went to Ralph Colin and I said, look, I've got this offer that sounds great. And I described it to him. And as your dad told you, Ralph Colin said to me, you don't want the record business. They are street guys. Most of them have gold chains. They're jazzy. Look at you in your khaki pants and tweed sport jacket coming from Harvard. You come from a totally different place than the record business. And of course I took the advice politely, was certainly well-intentioned. The reason I bring it up is that I knew that notwithstanding the education that I had at Harvard, notwithstanding my khaki pants and tweed sport jacket, that I grew up on the streets of Brooklyn, melting pot, friendly with every race, color, and creed. And that the advice my mother had given me to get out and meet people, I knew the common person. I didn't just know the Gentilian law student at Harvard. And so that brings it full circle as to why I treasure my upbringing, my education in Brooklyn.
Wow. I mean, you know what's crazy is when you say Erasmus High School, all of my cousins went to Erasmus High School. Erasmus was literally a transition to me going to New Jersey. That's definitely pretty amazing. For me, like, Brooklyn has changed. I've watched it constantly change. One of the things that I loved about Brooklyn that you said was the actual melting pot idea. And you know, like, similar to you as an immigrant, like when I came in, Brooklyn was just, it was, in my era, it was really, really bad. There was Flatbush Avenue. There was a small gang. It's so funny because when you say like chains and everything, right? So like, yo, you don't want to get in this business, right? But you from Brooklyn, you good. It was a small gang called the Decepticons when I first came to Brooklyn. And I barely could speak English. And my dad bought me 4 pair of sneakers. So I literally thought I was rich when I got to America. Each was $1.99 from a store called Jack's, $1.99. At the time, the sneakers were called Jeepers. And then later, I got what was called my first Pumas, you know, and in the hood, getting a pair of Pumas, you have your toothbrush that somebody steps on, you clean it. And I literally, one of these kids came and he was sizing up, putting his foot like next to my foot. And I'm like, dang, people in America are so friendly. And so he's sizing his foot up next to my foot. I'm like, man, this guy is really, so I'm like, hey, how are you? My name is Nev, you know, so good. And next thing you know, he hits me with a right punch and I fall down and he takes my Puma, the Puma I had on my right foot, and I was like holding down my left foot so he couldn't grab that Puma. And now I get home and I'm with 1 pair of sneakers on. And I go to my immigrant home and my father looked at me, he said, "Where your sneaker, boy?" And I said, "Dad, you wouldn't believe it, you know, there's this, some guy, you know, he looked like he was sizing me up. I thought he liked my sneakers. And then all of a sudden he punched me in my face and knocked me out." My father said, "Welcome to Brooklyn. Now go back out there and get your sneakers and bring your sneaker back home." So it was like my experience, my first experience in Brooklyn was like, yo, no matter what, you gotta be tough and you can't fear nothing. So shout out to this Decepticon gang. I never got that pair of sneakers back, but I gotta tell you, after that experience in Brooklyn, Godfather, I ain't never get a pair of sneakers taken, ever. So, you know,
Okay.
I'm looking at you and I'm seeing my father's funeral, Newark, New Jersey. I'm up in the hood. My daddy, you know, I always go back to my parents. And my dad was a minister, so he believed in putting churches in the hood. And I remember at the funeral, you coming in. And I gotta tell you, that touched me a lot. You was wearing a white suit. I'll never forget that. Incredible coming in. The reason why I mention that is because me and Whitney share a certain connection that I share with Whitney Houston. And I think the idea of coming from the church, that bishop, that whole energy was something quite amazing for me. And I mention that because every time I come to see you, there's the way that you talk about Whitney Houston, you know, is, I think it's so important that we, in history, that people understand where you found Whitney and who is Whitney, like, to the world, like, in your mind, Godfather, Whitney Houston.
You know, you're asking the question probably the right day. Why is it the right day? Because today is really the first day, Clef, that we're going to all the motion picture studios and streaming services with the biopic of Whitney.
Wow.
And so the background here is that, yes, in my heart, I am the guardian of the legacy of Whitney. And never will it be my intention to soft pedal anything about her life, whitewash it, the lethal addiction to drugs, which ended up doing her in. But when I say the guardian, without sounding pompous, arrogant, or presumptuous, there was the full side of Whitney, having signed her when she was 18 going on 19, knowing her from a teenager forward. The full story of a life has never been told in the 2 documentaries that have come out. First one was absurd, inaccurate, not factual, sensationalistic. The second one, the director just did not know music, bowed out. So any interview with me was never used, never met with you or Babyface, David Foster, the whole musical side, other than how many records she broke, was left out. So you don't have the full picture of Whitney. You don't have the other side of Whitney. And so I would say a little over a year ago, after Bohemian Rhapsody came out, I was impressed with the creative work done, the writer Anthony McCartan, and of course, historically, it's now become the biggest music film of all time, just shy worldwide of $1 billion. And so I met with Anthony, bonded with Anthony, and he and I agreed with the estate to co-produce the biopic of Whitney. And I've worked with Anthony, making sure that he has done substantial research and gone over different evolutions of the script. So we now have the full script, which I'm very happy with. And of course, music will co-star, not just the records that have come out, not just the movies, Bodyguard, Waiting to Exhale, Preacher's Wife that had come out, but you know all the private events. You know my Grammy party every year. You know if I were being honored by a well-intentioned, achieving charity, Whitney was always there for me.
Yes.
So we have the private performances of Whitney that no one has ever seen. It's not a documentary, it'll be a film. But no matter who is cast, no casting yet, it will be the voice of Whitney heard. But it will be the voice, not necessarily heard before on record, to complement, of course, all that was released great in record. So I made sure that hopefully she'll be understood, that throughout life, she was looking for a marriage, kids, family that would be normal, notwithstanding the incredible career that she had. It was never to be hers, either from childhood or through her life. But music, indeed, was so part of her DNA, and you learn to understand that. So it's a propitious day today, because we're just out there, and we'll see where it goes.
Wow, that's gonna be amazing.
You've heard it first on Run That Back.
Wow, it's so crazy because I remember being on the phone with you and you like, yo, I need this song for Whitney Houston. And I guess for me, when you're saying like family, I just remember being in the studio with her daughter, and Bobby Brown. And that session, it was just so much love like going on when she was singing, "My love is your love." And I saw Bobby like singing along with her. So I was like, Bobby, go in the booth. And Bobby Brown sung a little bit of the hook. I just tucked it in. But I know with your ears, you can hear everything, so all good. So I look forward to that. I know that's gonna be really, really amazing. So before I let you go, rappers constantly bragging about what they do, when they do it, whatever. Yo, dog, if we was to start to talk about who you are and what you've done, all I could do is tell everybody that's listening, please, we all have to watch your Netflix documentary like 3 trillion times. Now, let me tell you, everyone could watch it and we could see the accolades, but the most amazing part about you, Godfather, that attracts me, that keeps me going, is the idea of falling. Falling is like a transition for you. Like it's like you constantly rise to the occasion at the highest level. So, you know, at times when we fall, we feel like we can't get back up. And when we see like what you do, you constantly like keep going and you give us that energy. So if you was to give us that, what is that magic potion to keep going? Like at times when you feel like all roads are the end, like it just feels totally fucked up, like you can't go. I mean, all the way to the point where Godfather, like one of my friends was Tim Avicii. And I remember, you know, going to Sweden, seeing him and having that success at a young age, you know, and then automatically feeling like life is too much, the industry is too much, and that pressure pulls us in. And he takes his own life. And the idea of depression is a very serious one. What advice would you give all of us, you know what I'm saying, like moving forward?
Advice requires a certain amount of belief in yourself, a certain amount of understanding that what you're fighting for is not only your survival, but that right is on your side. A terrible way for me to have equipped myself for the perils of life, for surviving unexpected crises. And I don't know if anybody escapes unexpected crises. That's not what life for everyone is about. So losing your parents when you were a teenager, and when I went to law school, you know, that's when I felt my loneliest. That's when I felt my most anxious, without the parental love, support to be there. And so that surviving that on $4,000 to my name after both parents had passed away prepares you for a certain amount of rough going. And in my case, yes, as my documentary on Netflix, and I guess that's why it's gone viral. They just tell me it's exploded.
Talk, Clive, talk. Let them know.
All over the world.
Facts.
And, it is seen. And so that, you know, in the midst of all the artists, Clef, you know, I signed before we met, whether it's Springsteen or Joplin or Santana or Earth, Wind and Fire, Aerosmith,
Alicia Keys,
Philadelphia International. No, before that.
Yeah, I know.
And then there was a crisis at CBS. I was fired, but because they didn't know whether there was any payola in the record industry. So here, notwithstanding unequaled success, I had to wait for, you know, vindication. That was tough.
Yeah.
And starting from scratch with Arista, after Columbia, when you're the biggest company, I had taken them from number 3rd largest company to number 1. And starting from scratch. But then instead of signing self-contained rock acts like those that I mentioned, I then had to hone my ear to hit songs, because by that time the rock was new wave. And although I re-signed the Kinks and brought in the Grateful Dead and signed Patti Smith and the Outlaws and Lou Reed, they don't give you the volume that you want. I wanted to have the #1 company, major. And so you do that from knowing what a hit song is. And it was knowing and feeling and learning I had a natural gift that led me to the signing of Barry Manilow, finding Mandy for him, even though he could write it. We shared it over the years. He wrote. I found trying to get the feeling weekend in New England. I write the songs. And that led me to Dionne Warwick, bringing her back. I'll Never Love This Way Again, Deja Vu, Heartbreaker. That's what friends are for. That brought me to Aretha. She was no longer, she was always the queen of soul. But Aretha, after Jerry Wexler and she were no longer collaborators, she needed someone to work with her to find those hit songs. And she was approaching 40. And such a thrill for me with an artist like Aretha, that whether it was Jump to It, Get It Right, A Rose Is Still a Rose, I Knew You Were Waiting for Me, Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves, Freeway of Love. I mean, we had hit after hit. She won Grammy Award after Grammy Award until the time that she passed. That, of course, after the signing of Aretha, I signed Whitney. And those songs, you know, that document her life. And you came in so specially, Clef, because she had not done a studio album in 8 years. We had had 3 albums. She broke every record in history, 7 consecutive #1s. And then she did movies, successful, obviously. Bodyguard, the most successful soundtrack of all time. Waiting to Exhale, 15 million, huge album, moving. But she had not done a studio album for 8 years. So when she went into the studio with you, nervous, not because of you, but nervous that she had not done a studio album in 8 years.
Yeah.
And what you did with My Love Is Your Love, you know, and then we had It's Not Right, But It's Okay, and
That's right.
other hits. That was so major. And so that, and my second signing of Santana, and I hadn't seen him, work with him 25 years. And we went in the studio. Supernatural, the 12th biggest selling album of all time, was a result. And you were there with those, one of the 2 big hits that led to this incredible milestone. You came with Maria Maria. So our lives intertwined, Clef. We met at an important time for each of us, and we built our own friendship and bond and special connection. So that ties it all together, where yes, adversity comes. I had 2 of those, and your question, you just stiffen that spine. You never think of stopping. No one's going to stop you from doing what you love. No one's going to interrupt the joy, the passion of music, and you're both inspiring artists, producers, musicians, and you went out, you know. So what do I tell you, listeners? First of all, sharpen that work ethic. Make sure that you never float, take for granted, be confident. For me, no one plays my records ever because I signed Joplin, Springsteen, and Whitney Houston. You got to prove it every time out. So I have a great respect for failure. And those cocky individuals that rest on their laurels, that's ill-advised. You gotta come from a position of belief, knowing that you got attention to detail, work ethic, and believe that right will win out when it comes to personal character and life.
Godfather, it was such a pleasure. You know, I could talk to you all day. You look good. And dude, tell me, what do you have a rest day? Like, what's a chill day for you, man? Like, is this a chill day? What's the chill day?
Well, it's today. I'm talking to you.
So you're chilling today?
But I enjoy it. I'm not chilling, but I'm a great believer in family. I've got 4 kids. I've got 8 grandkids.
Yes.
So that I make time for the priority of my kids, for life together. I also make time for travel. So many people we know can get myopic thinking, oh, America has it all. But until you go travel in the world, until you go see and eat in Capri and the Amalfi Coast, until you go to whether it be Africa or Asia or Latin America or the Caribbean, learn other cultures, benefit from the wisdom that each has that has contributed to the world. So I love to travel. I'm a foodie. I like great restaurants and living life. Yes.
That's the vibe. Well, Godfather, I thank you. You know how you inspire me. So like we say, run that back. This is my Godfather, the great Clive Davis. I love you.
Okay, great. Sending love to you too, Clef.
Thank you. Bye-bye.